So Martina is quite simply a publishing phenomenon. She's had more #1 original bestsellers than any other author, which is amazing. 4 screen adaptations, 3 stage shows, and over 15 million copies sold worldwide. And each novel continues to outsell the last, does it not? Which is really no mean feat. And more than that, she is the most borrowed from prison libraries and the most and the most stolen from bookshops. So we are here today to celebrate an incredible 25 years of being published and of being a best-selling author, which is really amazing. 25 years since Dangerous Lady, her first novel, was published. And that's
I was only 12 though when I published it.
And also her latest novel, Betrayal. So before we talk about the books, Martina, let's talk a little bit about you. Your childhood, you were brought up in Essex. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I just grew up normal, really. I grew up, can you all hear me? Because I've got a really deep voice. I grew up in, you know, like most people, I grew up in a council house in Essex. My family moved in a slum clearance, you know, in the 60s, like a lot of people. And I grew up in a big Irish household, very Irish household. We all had Irish accents till we went to school because we didn't know anyone who wasn't Irish until we went to school. And we had it was just a really normal upbringing, we're Catholic, very Irish Catholic.
What did your parents do?
My mum was a psychiatric nurse. She used to say she went to work to get a bit of normality. And my father was a merchant seaman, so he used to go away to sea all the time. You know, he was on the ACT boats. He used to write me letters from all around the world and from Mombasa, you know, and all the places that he went. And I think that was probably what got me really interested, you know, in sort of the written word.
Well, did he bring you back?
Yeah, I was about 3, and he came back. He'd been around to Australia and New Zealand. They would get the meat boats, you know, picking up all the beef and everything. And then as he came back, he stopped in Rio and then in you know, sort of America itself. And he brought me back this really beautiful theatre. You know, it's only cardboard, it looked lovely. And when you opened the curtains, it was just full of all these little books, and it had Snow White and Rose Red. Do you remember all the original ones? And that was it. I think that was I loved them.
That was the beginning
loved
of
them, yeah, you know, they're so fantastic and scary as well, because, you know, they were the original scary stories.
The fairy tales.
You know, and they were quite frightening, actually, yeah.
And didn't you have, tell us a bit about your indomitable grandmother.
Well, my nanny O'Loughlin came for the weekend and stayed for 11 years. Yeah. She lived with my mum's sister, who was also a nurse, and they were all up in Abbotsford Avenue, actually, you know, up in Tottenham. And she came for the weekend and never went home. And my poor aunt used to try and bring her clothes. She used to go, no, you take them back. You know, I'll be back soon. But she never did. She stayed for 11 years, yeah. And it was really funny because my dad used to come home from theatre and used to go, she's still here. We'd go, yeah, they go. You know, and we'd all just laugh our head off because we adored her, you know. She was so tiny, really tiny. And she was a real big force to be reckoned with. And she used to drink, you know, remember black and white whiskey? She used to drink it in her milk. And we used to go, me and my sister used to say, oh, can we have some of your hot milk? She used to go, I'll make you some. We used to go, no, we want yours. But we never did. Because we knew her well had the whiskey in, do you know what I mean? Yeah. So it was great. It was great. She was a lot of fun. And she used to say, you know, you're never alone with a book. And it's a very true thing. Never be lonely with a book, you know. You can be all on your own, living on your own, but you can go into this world.
But you went into the world with disastrous effects when you were found reading in your convent in the Louvre.
I was. I got caught reading the Carpetbaggers. For the younger people here, read the Carpetbaggers. And I got caught at the convent and got expelled. And my mum, though, it's funny because my mum went up to school and she said, how does the nun know what the book's about? That's actually... You know, yeah. You know, because my mum said, I'm a married woman with 5 children. I never read it. And that sort of put them all on the edge, really. Do you know what I mean? They were sort of like, well, we better be careful here. And actually, I know as I'm older, she has a point, but I can remember going into, because the convent was next to our school when I was at Gray's Convent. And I can remember going in there and all the nuns were smoking and everything. And I thought, oh, I really want to be a nun. You know, you smoke your head off and drink whiskey and read racy books. Yeah.
But it wasn't the only time you were expelled.
No, I was expelled a few times.
Wasn't there one, didn't you throw something at a nun?
Yeah, I threw a book at a nun and got expelled again. And then another time for a bit, I went to another school completely and pretended I was a new girl. And I lasted into the afternoon with that one and I won the bet. Yeah. And then I ended up at the school where all my friends were, so I was quite happy. Because I hated the convent, I hated it.
Sorry, you didn't?
No, I never liked it then, no.
So when did you leave?
At 15, I left. We'd done a deal, you don't come back and we won't make you. So I said, fair enough, that suits me.
It's a perfect deal.
Yeah, and I did, and my mum and dad were members of the library right up until they died, and they never knew, because you could get your parents' books then, couldn't you? And I was going, oh, I've got to get books from my mum and dad. And she used to go and get loads of books. Read everything, just read everything. I could have my hands on and lay over the park reading and smoking, you know, number 10s. number 6 if I was a bit flush. But, you know, and I just used to sort of think, well, I'll just go and read. And I just loved the written word, and I still do.
And what about, I was thinking about, which we're going to come on to obviously when we talk more about the books, but sort of the criminal world.
Well,
and
you know,
your first boyfriend?
Yeah, he was a bank robber. He was ever so handsome. And you know, we're still friends to this day. Yeah, and yeah, he was a really, really nice person. He's very exciting as well. And he just got out of prison, and he thought I was my sister Rita, who was nearly 6 years older than me, and I let him think it for ages. Yeah. Like, oh my God, can't believe it. And it's very exciting, you know. And we'd go to all these pubs and everything, you know, and everyone, they'd serve me. I was over the moon, couldn't believe my luck, yeah. And do you know what? We are still friends to this day.
Oh, that's amazing.
We are still good friends to this day, yeah.
And
actually, I'd done a prison thing recently, and his son was there, and he went, hello, hello. So, yeah. So I thought, well, that's keeping the family thing going, you know. Yeah.
But you got married very young.
Yeah, I did get married very young and got divorced very young. It was, you know, it was the 70s, you know, we were arguing over who got the record collection, do you know what I mean? It was nothing important, but it felt like it at the time. And then I had my son, 1978. And
what did your parents say when you...
So that was still class, you know, it was really, really terrible, you know. But we were Catholics, Irish Catholics, so, you know, we were never going to do anything else, but the child was going to arrive. So my mum really made sure that you knew about it, though. And then, of course, as soon as he was born, she absolutely adored him, because that's Irish, isn't it, you know?
But your father was a bit more...
My dad was great. My dad was really, really good about things like that, you know. He was a really laid-back person, yeah. And, you know, his attitude was just, happened, it's life, get on with it. And I'm a great believer in that, you know. I think people, you can't spend too much time worrying about what other people think. You should be worrying about what's going on in your own life, do you know what I mean? And sorting that out and looking for it. And it was the best thing that I've ever done in my life, because it gave me a focus. I was only 18, you know, I needed a focus. I needed someone to look after. And he's over there, look, in the blue shirt with a beard. I love doing that to him, I really, really do. Yeah. Do you remember all them times they kicked off the supermarket? Well, that's how I get my own. Yeah. I don't lay on the floor though and roll around. I just go, that's him over there at the back. Yeah.
So presumably at that point you didn't think that you didn't have plans to be a novelist particularly, or did you?
No, I always wanted to write books, and I think anyone who really loves books wants to write a book. I think you read a book, you think, oh, you know, I'd love to write something like that, or your own story or something. I think everybody at some point who loves books, and I do believe that everybody has got at least one book in them. It's just finding what the subject is and what you're going to do, you know, what you're going, you know, what suits you to write about what you know. When I wrote Dangerous Lady, I was 21, and
you'd
it was the
worked
early
before
80s.
that, though, hadn't you?
Oh yeah, I wrote a book when I was at school about girls in a convent who could do karate and everything, and the CIA used to turn up every now and again and take her out to sort out spies and things. So I always like, you know, my women were always quite strong, and I wrote scripts and I wrote all sorts of it. I just never had the confidence to, you know, to send them anywhere. I didn't think anyone would want anything that I'd written, because I didn't think I had the background and everything for it. And then I was 30, come up 30, and I'd been working in a nursing agency for a long time, and one of the women was leaving and wanted me to, you know, buy in as a partner, and I was running the place by then. I thought, yeah, you know, it's really good living as well. And at the same time, we were moving house. you know, my husband, we were moving house, and I had this cupboard just full of manuscripts and scripts and all sorts. And I thought, oh, do you know, I'm going to just burn it, I'm going to drag it. Because we used to do houses up and sell them, so it weren't like, we moved a lot, you know, we sort of bought a house, done it up, sold it and whatever. And then, I don't know, I had a glass of wine as usual, and a cigarette, and I pulled that Dangerous Lady, and it'd been there for so long. And I was just sat on the floor, you know, you do, and I thought, well, read it, you know. And I thought, God, I'd buy this, I'd read this, I'd actually read this. Because you're getting old, you get more confidence. And I wrote it, I went into work and said to the two girls, Jill and Jane, I said, I want a 6-month sabbatical. So they said, oh, what for? And I said, I'm going to write a book. Well, they rolled around that floor, like, I'm really telling you right. And I went, yeah. I said, actually, I've already written some, you know. And now, if you talk to them, they go, we knew. She always had a way with words. But they were on that floor, take it from me. You know, they thought it was the funniest thing they've ever had in their life. But I thought, I don't care. And I went, and it was really weird because I got a tax rebate. Remember them days when you still got them? Going back a few years now. And do you remember Ryman's? Used to be in every high street. There was this little typewriter for sale on sale in Ryman's, and I went in and bought it. And I went home, bought all the paper, and I went home and I rewrote Dangerous Lady.
Oh, you actually rewrote the whole thing?
Yeah,
God.
well, brought it up to date.
Yeah.
Then I got the Writer's Night yearbook, and I saw a name, Darley Anderson, so I assumed it was a woman. Wouldn't you, Darley? So I rang up and I said, oh, can I speak to Darley Anderson, please? And he went, oh, it's me. It's really posh, it was like Wilfred Hyde White. So I was going, oh, hello. And he said, what's your book about? And I told him, and he said, women don't write books like this, but send it to me, I'm intrigued. And I caught the last post on the Friday, I think it was, and then on the Monday evening, my phone rang in my house. I went, oh, hello. And he went, you are going to be a star. And I thought it was my brother Tony, because he was a right wind-up. And I'd said to him, I've got an agent. And then I realised it really was Darley. I went, oh, thank you, you know. He said to me, I think we must meet. So I said, oh, OK then. And he said to me, Maura Ryan can't die at Fen Farm, because she died in the book. He said, she can't die, you must keep her alive. And we talked about it, went to lunch. And I said, OK, and I took it all on board. So I'm a great believer, if you don't know something, ask someone, you know, otherwise you're not going to find out how to do things. So I wrote it all down, you know, and we had this really lovely lunch in Fulham, Thai food. And then that was 26 years ago, and we had a handshake, and we're still on that handshake now. I've never signed a contract. We're still on the handshake now, yeah. And he's wonderful, wonderful man. But I'm going, oh yes, Darley. No, Darley, you know. And my husband's going, you call him Darling. And I said, no, it's Darley. Yeah. So, yeah, because all he could do was Darley this and Darley that. And he's going, you call him Darling. And I said, no, his name's Darley. Yeah. But we just clicked from the minute we met. And we're from two completely different worlds, you know. I mean, he's Cambridge, but we just clicked as soon as we met. And I was so lucky. And, you know, Darley was fantastic. And I would say, any of you want to write, listen to, if you get a literary agent, listen, because they know what they're talking about, you know. And then he auctioned the book with all different publishers, and Headline made a preemptive bid. And I was with Headline, and I've even still got the same publicist, Louise Page is here somewhere. Hand up there. So all these years later, I've still got the same agent, the same publisher, and the same publicist. Yeah.
Loyalty. And actually loyalty is really important in your books, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it is important to everybody, really, especially in the world that we live in now.
Yeah, that really, you know, I thought that, I read Dangerous Lady over the weekend. I thought it was absolutely fantastic, really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I've read it back and I'm like, oh my God, I want to change it all.
Oh no, I thought it was great. Yeah. Tell me, Maura Ryan, who's the heroine of Dangerous Lady, if you haven't read it, is she sort of takes on a man's world, doesn't she?
Yeah, well that was the whole concept of the book. When I wrote the book in the 80s, obviously I wrote it 10 years earlier, and all the books, it was an anti-book really, because I'm a big reader, but all the women in the books in the 80s were staggeringly beautiful, and that 12 were supermodels, you know, and everything. And I mean, it was great for its day. They were in the modelling industry or the perfume industry, and it was all women orientated and what they looked like. And Maura Ryan was really tall, but she had really big feet. You know, she wasn't perfectly beautiful.
She was quite good looking though.
Yeah, she was, but she wasn't perfect. She was quite a big girl, weren't she, as well? But I just wanted to take a woman and put her in an actual man's world, and so I put her in the world of criminals.
Was she based on anybody you knew?
No.
Not at all?
No. No one is in my books. They're all... I might have true things in the books, you know, that happened, that actually did happen, or it's how they would happen.
But your characters are...
Only once, that was when I'd done the Take, when I wrote The Take, was Eddie Richardson, his Aussie, you know, the guy in the prison. Yeah, because I'd just done the forward for Eddie's book, The Last Word, and he's very helpful to me, Eddie, he really is. If I'm in the 50s or 60s, he tells me everything, where you get your suits made, what cars you drive. And do you know, brilliant. Also, I buy all the old A to Zs. Well, I don't anymore because I know the roads, but I used to get all the old A to Zs and things like that because London's changed so much with one, you know, you've got sort of one-way streets and everything. Whereas years ago, sort of Notting Hill especially, you could have just drove over when they run over poor old Joe the fish. You couldn't do that now, you'd just go all the way around the airport. Can't be, you'd have to reverse over it, you know what I mean? So that makes the book sort of quite realistic, I think, is to make sure that you keep in the time that you're in.
Yeah, and you don't have to have the bother of mobile phones and stuff.
Well, yeah, that's great. I mean, the one I've just done, the fourth book in the Lady Killer collection, and you know, it's really hard because when I wrote Dangerous Lady Killer, which was the second book, you know, there was sort of DNA was just coming and everything like that. But now, I mean, please, you know, with social media and everything, you know, you know, in an average high street in London, you can be caught on camera 70 times in the course of one day. So I had to really think long and hard about how to work around that.
Well, I was in both these books, I mean, I haven't read all your books, but certainly in both these, they are two great big Irish families.
Yeah, well, I think, yeah, like I say, you're right about what you know.
So it's very familiar to you. But also Catholic families who, where girls get pregnant and then they go on and have their babies. I mean, in poor old Maura Ryan's...
But you know, I mean, you know,
was
people
punished
from
badly
school,
for not.
Their mums, you know, and they sort of, I remember when I was having my son, they were all like, oh God, you know, she's having a baby. And now I meet, they say, oh, you know, my granddaughter's having a baby and they get married next year. And I think, how times have changed, you know, and it can only be for the better. It can only be for the better, you know.
Well, Maura was horribly punished. That was a horrible scene where...
Yeah, when she had the abortion.
She has her abortion.
And of course women did that, you know, and I spoke to someone actually whose sister had gone through something very similar, and also another one of her sisters had drunk quinine and the baby had mortified inside her and she died, And you know, the fact that just because you were having a baby, the men were never vilified, it's only ever the women. You know, and I've always argued that, you know, men are brought up on, you know, Playboy and girls are brought up on, you know, Meet Your Prince. So I think we have to sort of like try and make the twain meet somewhere along the line. Yeah. And more, you know, especially in those days, 50s and 60s, if you wasn't engaged by 19 in the 60s, you were on the shelf. You know, something wrong with you. You know, and of course now it's changed so much and it can only be for the better. Well,
the other thing about the families is, of course, because they are Irish, they're also religious Catholic.
Yeah, and argue and
which
fight.
Which you are Catholic. I mean, is religion still important to you?
Yeah, I'm a practicing Catholic, and all my children are. My grandchildren all made the Holy Communions and everything,
Oh, really?
So then my son, I felt really terrible because when my son is married to the most beautiful Polish girl, I've been married for years, got a lot, you know, their children, everything all grown up. My eldest grandson is 20 on this Friday. But I just, honestly, I never thought, you know, I would be my mum. And the first thing I asked him was, is she Catholic? And he went, yeah, she's Polish. I was like, thank you, God. Yeah. I was like, I've turned into my mother. Yeah, I've turned into my mum.
It happens to the best of us.
Yeah.
But you've had two children and not married their fathers. And that's not very Catholic, though, is it?
No, I don't know. I think it pretty much is. When I did the first one, it wasn't. But by the time the second one, she's only 19. My grandson's older than my youngest daughter. So by then, it didn't really matter.
So why not get married?
You know, but I've got to say this. When I was having Chris, we had the most wonderful priest at the time, and he basically said to me, just, you know, don't worry about it, you know, the alternative's so much worse, which I think is very true. And he was sort of pretty easygoing. I think the priests are. I think in those days it was other women who were judging you more than ever, and it still is now, isn't it? Other women judge you far more harshly than everybody else does. You know, so I think this can only be a good thing now.
Well, coming to Betrayal, Tell us a little bit about Betrayal and
Well,
another
it's about
strong
Aidan
woman.
and Jade, and it's my first September romance, really. You know, made September because she's older than him, and she meets him when he's nearly 18 and she's 30, and she sort of introduces him into the criminal world, and he loves it. She's really lovely, Jade, and she introduces him into this really, excuse me, really seamy world, you know. But obviously, you know, he's a typical man. He wants to take it over. And I'm not saying any more because I don't want to let the cat out of the bag. But it's a great murder. No, I'm joking. I always remember when my son was small, I was watching the film. He said, "Oh, I saw that in the picture." I said, "Any good?" He said, "Oh, Mummy, it's really good." He said, "You really cry when she dies." I went, "Thank you." I learned many years later not to say too much about the book, but I let the cat out of the bag.
All right, well, without letting the cat out of the bag, and both not, I mean, they're very graphic, very violent. And I was wondering, I mean, do you ever frighten
I think life is, and especially nowadays, especially with the internet, there's so much graphic violence, you can just get the, you know, touch of
But do you ever feel that you've gone too far, or is there anything you wouldn't ever write about?
I mean, 8-year-olds aren't reading my book. You know, 5-year-olds aren't reading my books, you know. It's a completely different ballgame. And, you know, it's like, it always offends me years ago, so when I was first writing, you know, male sort of interviewers especially would say to me, "Oh, well, you know, your book's very violent." I'd say, "But you wouldn't say that to Stephen King, who's had facial scalping, everything in the books." Because it's a man saying it, so it's quite acceptable. But I think us women are catching up now. They'll be lucky to catch up with us in the violent state. That's what I think. But no, all joking aside, it used to really annoy me because I was blonde and tiny. I'm very tiny and everything. And you know, why should men have the have the monopoly on writing on a good crime book? And also, I think we are, as women, we give birth. You know, we don't get mad, we get even. And I even wrote a book about that, actually. But I do think, you know, we can be... Women normally poison, you know. Women are poison. We're sneaky killers in real life. Women poison, you know, and things like that. You know, my women might poison you in the future, I don't know.
Is there anything...
You know, they're in this world and they join it, and they have to. They have extraordinary events happen to them, and they have to, you know, fight back.
Deal with it.
And they do.
What about research? I mean, do you do a lot of research?
Yeah,
how do you sort of set about it? I mean, how do you know all this stuff?
Well, you know, I know people that I can ask and talk to. I remember one afternoon sitting in my house with some people who'd been in Parkhurst in the SSB unit, and they had a big map. We had a map about how, you know, doing the lay down and how you went from Parkhurst into London on a lay down, and the prison van never stops on a lay down.
I don't know what a lay down is.
Well, it was a big. I mean, it was really fascinating me. But to get the man out of the prison, to break him out of the prison, you know, on the jump, they had to get him on a lay down. So he had to start a riot because that's the only way. And then they have to remove you from the prison. It's called GOAD, a good order and discipline order. So I've got him out, done everything that they told me. Then I took him on the scenic route round Kent, past Devil's Canyon, because I thought it'd sound better in the book. And I still get 3 letters a month from lifers saying to me, "I love the book, but they'd never go that way." So I learned a big lesson. Always stick to what is the truth of it. You know what I mean? They say, no way they go around that Devil Canyon, no way they do this. But I all love the books anyway, so I learned a big lesson with that one, you know.
You visit prisons a lot. I mean, you're very involved with literacy in prisons, aren't you?
Yeah, literacy in prisons. Not just in prison. We go to workplaces. We go all over. It's a 6-book challenge. Lou, what's it called now? I can never remember. Reading Ahead, yeah. But it was fantastic. And I'm an ambassador, and you go into prisons, you go in workplaces, you go all over. Just get people reading. You know, even if it's only 6 magazine articles or whatever, it's just about getting people reading again.
Absolutely.
And for enjoyment, you know, just reading for enjoyment.
What about your writing? How do you sort of set about it? Do you have the characters come first or the theme come
first? It all
first?
Depends really. When I'd done The Take years ago, Freddie Jackson, I had Freddie Jackson. I had Freddie, and I had his wife and his family, and then I built The Take around the characters. But Freddie was such a big character to write, and he was a powerful character, wasn't he? I mean, you're never going to forget him. When I'd done the family, I had the story, and then I had to build the family into it. So it all depends really. Sometimes you get,
What about the new one? What
the characters sometimes get the storyline.
What about Betrayal? How did that?
Betrayal, actually, I got Aidan first, and Jade, you know, and I thought, well, where could I work with these? And excuse me, I was doing quite a lot of research into the brothels in those years and everything, because, you know, there's been a big explosion in all that in London now, hasn't there? You know, the last 10 years, with a lot of the Czechoslovakia, you know, sort of Eastern Bloc girls and everything. And I was reading in one of the papers, Charing Cross Road, they got a brothel with children in. Yeah, above an office block. They went in and went in and got it all. And it was, you know, you just get little bits in the paper, don't you? And then I sort of all put them all together. So, and then Jade come up, because Jade, if you've read Betrayal, I won't say too much, but, you know, she came up through that world, and now she's, you know, she was very hard, and she ended up sort of living in that world. And then, of course, Aidan, she meets Aidan, and Aidan wasn't called Aidan, he had a different name. And then we found out that there was a man on remand in Belfast, an IRA man, who had the same name. So we had to call him Aidan. We had to change the name, and I still go to call him by his original name. Yeah. God,
how funny. But you don't have to check names of everybody, do you?
No, but you do. I think, you know, you'll do, just be on the safe side.
And what about actually the way you write? I mean, do you
do
9 to 5? Or
no, I write all through the night. It's nice and quiet. You know, it's really, really quiet for me every night, because my phones go, you know, it's very noisy. And my house is like Casey's Court most of the time. There's always someone turning up and leaving, and noise and everything. So I like to write through the night. And I'm a night bird as well, I've always liked the night. And then what I do is, I used to hear the milkman come in, but I don't anymore. So, but now, you know, for a few years it was here, my cockerel used to cry, and I just think, oh, I better go to bed soon. And I work through the night, sometimes into the next day. I can do 20 hours at a time.
Still?
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
And when do you sleep? You don't sleep?
Yeah, I have a few hours sleep. I mean, my body clock goes up the wall, especially when I'm on the last rewrite of a book, because I just, you know, really, really intense. And
you do a book a year, which is hugely demanding, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it is, and it isn't really.
I mean, how long does it take you, ish?
Well, with your research, I think it depends really, but when I do the book, then you do it again, then you do your third rewrite, and that's, you know, when you sort of, and then I do that one in sort of like 6 weeks or 4 to 6 weeks, so it's really,
gosh,
quite intense at times. But I love every second of it, you know, I really, really do. And when it's done, it's so lovely, you know, it's really, really nice, because you can lay in bed in the morning. I can go shopping. Do you remember Gilda O'Neill? Gilda's dead now. She was a great author, Gilda, but we're all procrastinators, authors are all procrastinators. What else can we do rather than write? And she used to ring me up, she used to go to me, should we go to Lakeside and look at the new lipsticks? I was going, yeah. It was like the most important thing in my life. I was going, yeah, oh yeah, let's go. Yeah, we're going to have lunch. She just got me, I've got to write this book. I go, no, the book, no feeling it. Yeah.
So do you plan the books incredibly in a detailed way before you start writing?
Sometimes it depends really. I mean, I do plan the, you know, sort of the chapters and things. Certain chapters I do plan, because you're bringing everything together, you know.
Well, they're very big.
It all depends, really. It does really depend on the book you're writing, the characters that you're writing, and what you're writing about. Because, you know, sometimes you know, if it's a convoluted sort of criminal thing, you know, you have to keep on it to make sure you don't make any mistakes or whatever. But I think I'm pretty lucky, because I think I've got quite a criminally mind. So I think I'd have made a great criminal. You know?
Do you?
Yeah.
Do you think you'd have been a murderer or a bank robber?
Oh, I think you annoyed me. No, I'm joking. I think I'd probably be really good at sort of some kind of skullduggery of some description. But I'd be a great mistress, you know.
How do you
do that now with mobile phones? Do you remember years ago, you used to go, I'm on a train, I've got, you know, the train's been cancelled. And you go to the pub and go, right, I've told him. Can't do that now, can you? They can GPS your phone.
How do you think your writing's changed? Do you think it's changed over 25 years?
I hope so. I hope people are enjoying it, still enjoying it.
I'm sure they
and
are.
I think the more, you know, the more books you do, the more confidence you get, and you sort of, I mean, I really enjoy what I do. I think I'm so lucky. So many years I got up and went to a job that I hated to pay the bills, you know, and I think it's really great then you get a job that you really love, and, you know, you enjoy doing it.
How's it kind of changed your life, do you think?
Oh, enormously, really enormously. You know, obviously it's changed my life has changed so much. I remember when we were doing I'd been to see Headline, and everything, and I was hoovering, where you hoover, and I was thinking, if I get £5,000 or £10,000.
This is at the beginning after you saw Darlie.
Yeah, and Darlie rang me up and he said, Headline have offered a preemptive bid of £150,000. And I said to him, are you sure you got the right person? He went, yes, it's you. And he was really annoyed with me because he said to me, you've got to start taking yourself seriously. And I was like, oh, and he said, well, someone else had offered more actually. He said, but they're not the publisher for you. And I went to him, whatever you say, I'm happy with that. And I remember he come home and he thought someone had died because I was crying my eyes out in the kitchen. And he said, I really thought someone had died. I went, no, it's really good news. Yeah. I'm getting divorced. I'm only joking. I'm only joking. I was like, oh my God. The most exciting bit for me, really being honest about it, was that somebody wanted something that I'd written and I'd done, and that's sort of validation, and it's that validation, isn't it? You spend all that time there, and suddenly someone said, you know what? Yeah, we can do that. That's great. And I think that's fantastic. The best feeling, because I'm always joking. I joke with nerves a lot of the time, and I talk with nerves, but the best feeling is that validation where you think somebody else, you don't know, has got no vested interest in you. Because, if your kids come home, you go, oh, fabulous poem, you think, well, there's no Wordsworth going like that. It's a complete stranger, isn't it? It's a complete stranger who's read your stuff and said, you know what, yeah, we're going to pay you money for this. And that's the best feeling in the world, because it's not people you know. And my mate Jackie used to take a chapter to work, because, a couple of chapters at a time, she worked in the city. And she used to go to me, Tina, I love it, it's really great, but I just thought, I know it's Jackie because she's my mate, Yeah. She can't say, God, don't go up the day job.
So when you,
at Presto's are great.
So when you finish it, who reads it first? I mean, do you get all
normally Chris, actually, my oldest son normally reads it first.
Do you get all the criminal stuff checked? Or
I don't have to anymore, to be honest with you. I don't need to check it anymore. And you see, that's another great thing with online, isn't it?
Yeah.
With me, with the criminal stuff is when, because I go into the past quite a lot, don't I, And when I first met my agent Darlie, I was 32, I think, and I had this great big manuscript, rewritten manuscript, in a box, that you put tomatoes in, but it's the only thing I had that would fit. And I went in, I knocked on his door, and he went, I do not take unsolicited manuscripts on my doorstep. And I said to him, no, I'm Martina. He went, oh, hello. And in Dangerous Lady, there's a scene where two of the elder boys in the family, the dad takes them to rob the people who've been bombed, and he puts them through the floors to go and take. And he said, I really thought you'd lived through the war, because he assumed that I was writing from experience, and I still take that as a compliment to this day. And I said, oh no, it wasn't me, but one of my neighbours did. But it was so, I think a lot of it with books, especially when you're in the past, is just getting it right, so that people who read it, like watching Casualty or something, there's a doctor somewhere going, well, they wouldn't do that, and it's ruined the whole programme for them. But I think that's the same with books. You have to get it as factual as possible, and then people believe that everything else in the book is true, Yeah. When I do book signings in London, I always get, it's the so-and-so family, isn't it? I go, no. And I go to Manchester, they go, is that the so-and-so? I go, no. I'm in Glasgow. Come on, that's the so-and-so. I go, no. But everybody from a big character estate knows families like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Now, if the time has come, would anybody like to ask Martina a question? Come on, somebody break the silence. Yeah, go ahead. Can you speak as loud as you can?
Yeah, you said, Martina, earlier that something about taking yourself seriously, that you were not. So I just wanted to ask you, was there a particular point in time where then you thought, yeah, that's how I can take myself seriously?
That's a really great question, because when that happened with Darlie and everything, and then Sue Fletcher, who was my editor at the time, and they'd just got a headline. I was one of Headline's first homegrown authors. I mean, they had sort of Dean Koontz and things, but I was their first sort of homegrown author. And Sue Fletcher, she's the most wonderful person in the world, And, you knew that she knew what she was talking about. But I think when I really knew was with the second book, with Lady Killer, because then that outsold the first book, and then you know that you've got to be doing something right. You know, it wasn't like everybody bought my book. Oh, don't. The night before Dangerous Lady came out, Sue Fletcher rang me, bless her heart. She thinks she's being nice. She said, we've got 90,000 books in the shops. I never slept. I was like, oh God, no one's going to buy them. I couldn't sleep. I was up and down, like I smoked myself to death. Sitting there at 3 o'clock in the morning thinking, who's going to buy them? And of course, you know, again, it's that confidence. You know, I didn't grow up in a, you know, where people made you think you could do things like that. And then when we done Lady Killer and it sold more, and it was like, yeah, then I think I might be able to do this. And then Goodnight Lady, which spanned 100 years. I mean, who would have guessed that Rainham-on-Thames used to be a place to go for your holidays? Really? BOC and everything's down there now, isn't it? Yeah, Rainham-on-Thames, you know, apparently, I'm not being funny, but no wonder the Victorians were so strange. You know what I mean? All the places you could have gone, I would have Rainham-on-Thames. So I researched all that, you know, and everything, and I think, yeah, it's the second book.
So not the first one?
No, I felt like I was lucky with the first one, but I think the second one, selling the same, you know, and outselling it made me think, well, like this, and it was a completely different book as well, because, you know, it was a serial killer book, you know, it was sort of a police procedural. So it was nice to know that the people who'd enjoyed the first book had then gone and bought the second book, and then of course Goodnight Lady, and then it went from there, and I think probably the second book.
You must feel more confident now, do you?
I don't think anybody ever does. I still can't sleep a few days before the book comes out, and I still think, oh God, you know, what, do you know the really strange thing? On the day of publication, I don't care, because there's nothing you can do anymore. You've done all you can, and then there's nothing you can do, is it? You know? It's like when you're waiting to give birth, isn't it? You know, you're terrified out enough, then you have your labour and you think, well, that's it now, you know. This ain't stopping. We've got to go on with it.
Anybody else?
This ends today.
Yeah.
Well, I'm in the minority of it, a fella. But what intrigued me was that obviously these are #1 worldwide bestsellers, and for me, being an Essex bloke, what attracted me to them and got me started on reading them was the fact that my business was in Allchurch, Romford and Ilford and Rainham, and I knew exactly where you were.
See, when people,
what intrigued me was what they would think of it in Carlisle, where they didn't know.
Yeah, but you see, it's a funny thing, because like I said earlier, I think anyone who comes from those kind of areas understands what we're talking about. But also, for years, whenever it was the East End, it was always Tobacco Road, it was always all the same places, and people forget there was Barking and Dagenham and Ilford. That was all East London, and it still is. You know, even though Ken Livingstone turned into the GLC and come there and made us all part of Essex, it's still classed as East London, and people forget that. You know, people often forget that. So I still use the places where people who come from there actually know was that area. You know, so, and I think that helped as well. I remember one day, listen, I had the, East London paper phone up, and he said to me, oh, Tina, he said, our offices are all over, like, opposite now, the Ship and Shovel. And I said, that's the first time I've ever heard anyone say ship. Yeah. It's not the best pub in the world, you know what I mean? And I had a weekend warrior, didn't I? Saturday off at the Ship, I nearly said it there, the Ship and Shovel, and I think people remember these places, do you know what I mean? And I think that gives it the realism for the people who actually do live there, and it doesn't all have to be the commercial road. And what's on a commercial road? There's been nothing on there for years, do you know what I mean? You've got a Seamen's Mission, haven't you, and a couple of hotels.
I'm sure knowing it brings something extra if you do, but if you don't know it, and I don't necessarily know it, I don't think it doesn't matter. It doesn't spoil the story.
What I'm saying, it doesn't matter,
it just makes it seem very real. But that's all. There's a question behind. I know there's some here, but there's
Had written about the criminal world, what would you have written about?
I don't know really.
Can you say the question again?
I
think people at the back can't probably hear.
She said if I hadn't written about the criminal world, what would I have written about? But I don't think I would have written about anything else. I can't really see me ever writing chick lit. Do you know what I mean?
Too late now.
But also, I really, you know, I enjoy that world. I like that world, you know, I like the criminal world. And I mean, you've got no television really, have you? Think about it. You know, I mean, look at what we've got now. We've got CSI, got all these things. I mean, anyone can murder anyone, really. All you've got to do is watch the first season of CSI. You can take anyone out, can't you? Make it look like it was nothing to do with you. But also, I think, you know, crime is a big part of our world, and it is a big part of sort of our entertainment, if you want. Which sounds a terrible thing to say, but it's true. I mean, do you know, we were talking today about, do you remember, what's it called? Hannibal.
Silence of the
Lambs. Who would have believed that we'd have sat and watched a film where a man was going to go and eat someone and we were pleased? And when he says, I'm going to have an old friend for dinner, we should have all been, no, but we were like, yeah, because we didn't like him, did we? You know, so, and it is part of our entertainment now. It is, you know, criminal things. And my criminals, and I like my criminals, I like them. They're interesting to write, they're good to write.
There's a question here somewhere, yeah.
Hi, I've read all your books, but Goodnight Lady is the only one of your books. It's like a standalone in that it was period.
It's been 100 years, I know.
Favourite. Why have you never?
Well, actually, I have thought, I've done a couple of outlines for books that go that, because really that should have been 2 or 3 books, because it was a really big book, yeah. It was, yeah. But it is when I started doing Bryony's story, and this is true, I was out in Hungary, right, doing a book tour out there, and I went to Budapest, and then we went down to all the different places, and all the women were coming up going, Bryony, and all these little girls, and I thought, oh my God, they're all named after an Irish prostitute from East London. But it was just, they loved it out there. In Hungary, they absolutely loved it. Do you know what I mean? And it was really lovely to think of all these little girls in Hungary running around with Irish name. But it was, when I started researching it all, I knew I had to go back that far to get, because of the content, because it's not very nice content, is it? But of course, and then I wanted to bring her right to the full of her life, you know, and I think she had a fantastic life, and she had a terrible life in some ways. And I think that a lot of the time in my books is, my women don't always have the best start, you know, not the greatest things happen to them, but we fight it, and, you know, they learned their strength, you know, and they learned to fight back. And, you know, I remember a lady saying to me years ago, I'm off for market, this old lady, she's 96, and she said, I love your books, and she said, you give me violence and prostitution in my own home. Well, I said, that's really one way of putting it, yeah. And then she told us all that she had all her own teeth. We had no idea what that had to do with reading the book. But I think the thing that she was trying to say to me is, I'll give her an insight into a little world that she might not know too much about, you know, and I think that's what books are about.
But are you going to write another one, period?
Yeah, I might do another period, because I did enjoy Goodnight Lady. But it was such a big book, wasn't it? And really, that should have been 2 books, I think.
And a film.
Yeah, it should have, yeah, and a film, yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just interested to know, because I'm absolutely fascinated by the trade and the Richardson,
Yeah.
the gangs in Edinburgh and everything, the other countries, you know, Manchester,
yeah.
all of their own gangs. Do you actually know any of them?
Yeah, it's terrible, really, isn't it? And it's a really lovely, you know, as you meet over the years, you know, with people and everything, yeah. So, and it's nice, because when a friend of mine who's in Liverpool, and he took me around all the pubs in Liverpool, and it was really lovely. And I had a lovely time, because I knew I was safe. I don't know if I'd want to go there on my own, do you know what I mean, or with friends. And the same in Manchester, and the same in Glasgow. And it's nice, because you get the feel of the place that you're in then as well, and you know, how people talk and how they react. So yeah, I have met some nice people over the years, for want of a better word. Yeah.
Another question. Yes.
You give 110%, obviously, when you do your book, staying up 20 hours, whatever.
Yeah.
So how do you relax?
Well, I read, believe it or not, but not mine. Reading is such a big part of my life. I read so much. I mean, I can read a big book in a day, and I have a house out in northern Cyprus, you know, Turkish Cyprus. I've been there for years, and I'm in the middle of nowhere there. It's lovely, and I just read and read and read, and that has always been my getting away from the world. You know, it's always been
really
reading.
Started from, wasn't it? From
Yeah.
reading, and
Yeah.
that's how you keep going, really.
If I had a choice between a book, a film, or a series, I'd pick the book every time. Yeah.
What sort of things do you read?
I read everything and everything. Honestly, I have such an eclectic reading taste. I love autobiographies. I love every kind of book, you know, and I do read a lot of historical as well. I love historical fiction as well, and I like truth, you know, and anything to do with Henry VIII. I don't know why. He really fascinates me. I don't know why. The Tudors, yeah, and I think that's proved with England, isn't it? You know, because, you know, you only got to mention Henry and we were watching it, and Wolf Hall and things like that. When I read Wolf Hall, God, I mean, Hilary Mantel, what a writer. I shut that book and then started it again. Yeah, because I thought, in case I missed something. And the series was absolutely out of this world, you know. But at the moment, I'm all into American Gods because I love the book. I'm going to reread that. Yeah, I just read everything. I read a lot of science fiction as well, and horror. I love horror. Yeah, I do.
Do you do anything else to relax? Anything else to relax?
Not really. Not that I can say in here.
Okay.
I'm joking. Yeah, I read racy books now, I'm joking. Yeah, you know, I mean, I love when I'm out sort of with my family, the children all come out, my grandchildren, and we all relax together.
Weren't you very...
No, I had a caravan for years. I had a caravan, so I'm a real caravan girl. I love them. And my little daughter used to say, Mum, it's like a doll's house and we're the dolls, you know. I love caravans, and I love caravan holidays, and I'll still have them. But I had a caravan for a long time. But then when we bought the houses out in Northern Cyprus, the weather here was a bit iffy a lot of the time. So we tend to go out there. And I do spend 6 or 7 months of the year out there now because I just love it there.
Reading?
Yeah, reading and writing. Do a lot of writing there, yeah.
Do you still want your daughter to write at all?
No, my daughter actually, she's pretty good. She has some really fantastic ideas. He's a big reader, he's a reader. My grandchildren are readers, except my oldest grandson, he's film and television, but my 2 little grandchildren, 10 and 6, they're really, really big readers, which is lovely, you know.
It's great.
Because I think it's great to see kids pick up a book. But I like a physical book. I'm not really a Kindle girl, you know. I like the actual book, and you know, I remember years ago I was reading Baroness Blitzen, you know, out of Africa, in Africa, and I dropped it. We were at a watering hole, and I dropped the book in the watering hole. We were waiting for the elephants or whatever to come, and I dried it, and it was that big. But I could still read it, and I'd like to see you do that with a Kindle. Do you know what I mean? I wiped all the mud off and everything, cleaned it, and put it on, you know, in the thing over like that, and it dried. Yeah, but I am old school with that.
Sorry, there was a question just over there. Yeah.
Standard question, whereabouts in Ireland?
My mum was Dublin, my dad was Cork.
Well,
and whereabouts?
Not the city, a seaside town called Youghal.
Oh, I know Youghal, yeah, I've been there many times. I was in Betrayal a little while ago, I was out in Cork. I went for a long weekend and stayed for 3 weeks, I ended up in... And I took my daughter, my youngest daughter, down to Skibbereen. Yeah, I took Skibbereen, went to Bantry, and this, you're not going to believe this, we got, the only place left in this hotel in Bantry was a little 2-bedroom cottage. So I said, oh, we'll have that, it was €100, and I thought, quite, you know, and it was a bit tatty, but it was lovely. And who you know was on, what's his name? Oh, Christy Moore. But I'm sorry, I'm terrible with the age thing. And my daughter, you know, she was 18 then, I said, oh, you've got to see Christy Moore, you know, and she went, oh, all right. And I said to him, you know, is there any more? They said, yeah, he's on tomorrow night again. And we actually got this little place again. So I said, oh, yeah, all right, we'll do that. And, you know, he was on with some of Pink Floyd, and they played Pink Floyd, and they'd done everything. And she come out of there, and she was like I was. I remember sitting with my mum, you know, when I was a kid. My mum would have, well, she'd have run you down to get to Christy Moore, do you know? But it was so lovely to sit there with her and see her enjoy it so much, you know? Because I go to Cork a lot, I really do, yeah.
So I really understood all the Irish Catholics.
Do you go back very much to Cork?
Oh yes, I was.
But you know Dino's? You know Dino's in Kinsale and all the fish and chip shops? That's my cousin Dennis Cregan, and he was the Lord Mayor. Yeah, he was the Lord Mayor of Cork. Yeah, it was in the Irish Parliament, it's in the Doyle as well, yeah.
Well, have you been to our homes in Youghal? That's lovely.
Yeah, oh, Youghal is very beautiful, but all Ireland's beautiful, you know, all Ireland is beautiful.
I was there at Easter time,
yeah.
and it was lovely, lovely weather.
Yeah.
Believe it.
Yeah, do you know, remember John McEntee? Do you remember John McEntee? We used to say, Ireland's lovely, but it needs a roof on it. And that's true. Because,
that's great.
You know, it does rain a lot there.
Is there another question?
Thank goodness for the ozone.
Yeah. I know, the only place in the world is Ireland, hoping against hope it'll heat up. Yeah. But no, I love out in Cork. I do love, see the family and everything, it's wonderful.
I understood the Irish family and their way of thinking, you know,
Yeah.
and how it was there. Yeah.
Oh, listen, my mum and my brother Tony could have got an axe and murdered all the neighbours on CCTV, and my mum would have gone, they must have upset him. Would never have done anything wrong, do you know what I mean? And that is an Irish mother. But they must have upset him, that's all I can say. And I think that sums up Irish mothers, do you know what I mean?
Anyone else?
Animal, last
Charlie,
one.
last one, yes.
Oh.
last two. Well, you go
Yeah.
first.
You talked about some of the writers that were inspiring you, particularly the women.
Yeah.
Have you got any sort of mentees in your circle that you're helping to?
Yeah, you know, there are a few that, you know, you meet at writers' conferences and things, and also I'm a big advocate for new authors as well, you know, Caroline Mitchell especially, and Danielle Ramsey and others. I've always read that and said, you've got to read this, it's fantastic. I love to read other authors, and I love to discover a new author. I think the best feeling in as well, you know, the world is when you discover a new author and you go, oh, yeah, I really like that. So yeah, and I will always, I'll say to them, if you want, you know, I'll say it's a fabulous book. I think that they've done a wonderful job, and I'll be the first one to say it. And there's nothing better than an author that you've never read before, and you find out they've got a backlist, and you're like, yes, thank you.
And you're a great giver of books.
Yeah, so. I'm a great giver of books. I do give books out as gifts a lot. I got, funny enough, that one over there, I got him Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas signed from the Strand Bookshop in New York for Christmas. But I saw it, you know, you think, oh, I've got to get him that. You know, because I do buy books a lot for people.
And you wanted to ask something.
Two things, really. One, is there any...
Can you ask it quite loudly?
Sorry. Is there anything that you would like to achieve that you haven't? And where did you get your shoes?
Oh, listen, the shoes. Everybody always says that. These shoes are from Misguided. You know, Misguided. And they're all in the sale at the moment. Cheap as chips, yeah. I've got them in red as well, red. I've got them in pink, yeah. I'm looking, no shoe. Go in there or go online and look for Misguided. Honestly, they're fabulous shoes, yeah. And they are not even the bottoms. I went to the Star Wars premiere in a pair of these shoes, and I had R2-D2 on the back. Yeah. And on the bottom we had Princess Leia. And I felt really terrible because she died. I felt horrible walking on her head. Yeah. And I thought, oh, I can't walk on her head. She just, you know, died. But I think the only thing I'd like to achieve now, I think, is, I don't know really. I think as you get older, you don't stop dreaming, but your dreams change. I think the thing that I'd like to achieve next now probably would be to direct a film, if I could, or direct a television series.
Of your own?
Yeah, of my own, yeah. I think I'd love to do that, because when I'd done Dangerous Lady years ago, Johnny Woods, who was the director when we were filming it, he said, your book's the nearest I've ever come to a shooting script. You know? Yeah, and I've took that really, really well.
Fantastic.
But there, I think that's probably what I'd like to do.
Are you planning to retire?
On that note?
No, I don't know. I might. I think, oh, I must retire. I might retire. But then, I think because it's writing. Writing's like reading. You enjoy it so much. Would you ever retire from reading?
No.
No. And that's exactly the same with writing. Yeah.
I'm afraid it's time to draw everything to a close. But Martina will be here over there, so I suppose, signing copies, and you can obviously chat to her a bit more then. And I'd like to say thank you to all of you for coming.
Thank you very much.
Biggest thank you of all, of course, is to Martina.
Thank you.